Good evening, board members and residents. I'd like to call to order our regular board meeting for Monday, October 23rd, 2023. I'd ask that everyone present please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Backens?
Here.
Mr. Brado?
Here.
Mr. Olgiati?
Here.
Mrs. Rose?
Here.
Mr. Tominello?
Here.
Mr. Witt here. Mr. Burkowski?
Here, thank you. Next on our agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, including the approval of the regular board meeting minutes of October 10th, 2023, approval of the bills in the amount of $634,246.57, approval of the September revenue and expenditure report, and the fire department budget adjustment for the mid-year. Unless there's any questions or concerns, I'd be looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Is there support?
Support.
Got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mrs. Rose. Any discussion on the motion?
The only thing looking at that fire department budget adjustment,
Yeah.
that was a $41,000 reduction, correct?
Would be a $41,000 surplus.
Surplus.
Right
Yes,
now we're
yes,
showing.
Yes,
Yep.
surplus.
Yep, so really, the primary concern with budget adjustments are that we don't really want to get to the end of the year and be in a deficit in any budget. So the fire chief and a finance director did meet, go over some concerns they had, maybe some concerns with revenue. Probably two of the biggest one is we've seen a little bit less ambulance revenue than we had budgeted for. And we saw an increase in our workers' compensation insurance. And of course, we approved a $50,000 contribution to the OPEB fund. So if we see a little bit of loss of revenue, a little bit of an increase in expenses that we feel we'll finish the year with, we're basically shifting about $200,000 out of the equipment replacement fund. And if you're shifting anyways, it's monopoly money at some point. Like, we could have shifted 150 and been even, shift 200, we'll have a $40,000 surplus, and it may prevent Nikki from having to make an adjustment by the end of the year. So that was the logic. Any other discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next on the agenda is the approval of the regular agenda. Board members, as I had communicated to you, there are some concerns with item E2. So I had indicated that I would be proposing that we remove item E2 from the agenda. I also received a request from a trustee regarding G1, which is our closed session, to talk about potentially all three bargaining units, because as you know, our fire, our general, and our supervisor bargaining units all have contracts in negotiations.
I make a motion to approve the regular agenda, removing item E2 and amend item G1 to include GELC and AFSCME.
All right. Is there support?
Support.
Got a motion by Mr. Witt with support by Mr. Olgiati. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next on our agenda is item C, which is announcements. I have a few. This Saturday, October 28th, from 1 until 3 p.m., the township will be hosting an open house and ribbon cutting for our sheriff substation at 30360 South River Road, just east of Jefferson. Everyone is welcome. For more information, you can find information on our township website. Our township website is going through a refresh throughout this week. There may be intermittent outages or interruptions while we migrate over to the refreshed version of our new website, and we appreciate your patience during this week. On November 1st through the 8th, our Tucker Senior Center will be hosting a clothing drive for the St. Vincent de Paul Society. For more information, you can visit the township website, or you can contact our senior coordinator, Jen, 586-466-1497. On November 4th at 1 p.m., we will be hosting our annual Veterans Memorial Program right here at Rosso Hall. We thank the Beautification Commission for organizing and overseeing this amazing program. Don't forget to check out our amazing township library, there are so many great events taking place. There's always something for everyone. For example, for teens, there will be Dungeons and Dragons this Friday, October 27th, and Improv Night on Monday, October 30th. Make sure you check out the library and their website, www.htlibrary.org. And for more information on all these, as well as all other township events, you can always call the supervisor's office, 586-466-1445. Visit our website, harrisontownshipmi.gov, or follow us on Twitter or X and Facebook at Harrison TWPMI. Any other board announcements? Hearing none, I would like to invite up our county commissioner, Mrs. Barb Zinner, to the podium to give us an update on county concerns and issues.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. We are going through budget right now. We will be through November and part of December. A lot of numbers, a lot of things to think about. One thing Executive Hackle said at our meeting the first day and at the Harrison Township State of the Address was he does not expect as many grants, money like that coming into the county. Suppose that's because of the many situations with money on the federal level and other situations which everyone can see on the news or whatever you might think it would be. I thought that was interesting at both places. Same sentence, same wording, and I was glad he made that statement because we've been seeing so many situations happen for our citizens. It's of concern, and people are adjusting. Well, of course, the lower income people always have it harder, but it's affecting economy and business. It's hard for everybody in their own way. At our house, we haven't had trick-or-treaters in quite a while, and I want to say congratulations to Miss Rose, Mrs. Trustee Rose, and Jen at the Senior Center, and whatever, all the things that she does. So I finally was able to, I was going to do trunk or treat, and I was able to get in there, but it ended up going to the school, which she will explain. And it was so much fun. It was just 300 little children coming, and it was just fun to give all the candy out, and they were darling, and the parents were happy, and they were carrying babies, of course. It was just great. Anyway, that's really all I have to say. If you have any questions, be sure to call me. My number's everywhere. You can call the website for the Board of Commissioners, or I just live on Elm. My husband and I, Steve, have lived there a long time, so just come knock at the door. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other board announcements?
I just do want to thank Bev Palega at Lovestall Elementary. I know she had to pull some last-minute strings when I made an audible on the Thursday before the Saturday event, and they were able to get us inside, and I think the trunk-or-treaters really had a great time. Like she said, we had almost 300 kids, and cider and donuts were complimentary, and Mr. Batkins was a part of that as well. So, great event.
And as I kind of spoke to in the State of the Township address a little over a week ago, you know, it's just cooperation, it's people, it's, you know, folks coming out that volunteer for that event to give out candy, members of the community getting together. Hey, we got a last-minute issue with weather, we have a great working relationship with the school district, and we were able to, you know, in the end, the residents really don't care what pocket of money it comes out of. We all pay for the schools, we all pay for township events, and so it was cool that we could all work together and get that done. So thanks to a lot of people for that.
Right.
All right, next on our agenda, item D1 from the clerk's office regarding an SAD.
Yes, so tonight we have our public hearing number 2 for the Special Assessment District for the Cortez, Santos, and Carno Streets. The purpose of tonight's public hearing is to review the assessment roll. The notice for tonight's hearing was mailed out to individuals as they appear titled on the property records, as well as published notice twice in the journal. I will say that we did have a resident, you know, asked some questions about it, so there was an adjustment made to the dollar amount based on math error, so we did make that correction, lowering the cost per home, so that is reflected in the roll that we have before us. So tonight we would open the public hearing, and allow for residents to speak to the assessment roll as it's prepared. After that, we close the public hearing, and we won't move forward with the final resolution for this project until after we hear about the grant, to be able to understand exactly what our bonding obligations are and timing and that kind of stuff, so.
Okay. And you're the expert on this, but is this the hearing where folks are encouraged to give any information if they speak, or it's not necessary?
But really, the first public hearing is the one where you're reserving your right for property appeal, but again, now's the time for anybody to speak to the project, and
So you can speak for or against the project?
we will record it as such, yep.
All right. Any other discussion, board members, on what D1 is? If there are no other comments, we'd be looking for a motion to open public hearing number 2.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion. Is there support?
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Olgiati with support by Mr. Badkins to open the public hearing. So if there's public comment, once we make this motion, that's when we'll hear public comment. So, any discussion on the motion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment on the motion, Mr. Witt, will you please does this require roll call?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mr. Batkins?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Witt? Yes. Mr. Burkowski?
Yes. So at this time, anybody who's present who wishes to speak for or against the project or the role, we encourage you to come up to the microphone and do so now. If there are a number of people, we encourage you to utilize the on-deck chair. So if one of you is speaking and one of you also wants to speak, we encourage you to come up and sit in the chair. That way we can give everybody a chance as quickly as possible to get through and speak for or against.
In advance of anybody walking up, we did receive an email prior to the start of the meeting from a Mrs. Sears who is speaking, who was emailed in her opposition to the project. She could not attend tonight, so she asked that that be recorded into the record, so that will be recorded as the first public comment.
Okay. So is there any public comment regarding this project?
I guess I shall go first. Did you wish me to state my name again?
As you wish. Yep. you
Okay,
certainly
Gilbert
can.
Richard, 39157 Town Hall, Harrison Township, Michigan. If I promise to keep my hands in clear view and not make any sudden movements, I do like to hand out handouts. Would you like me to come and give it to you, or?
You may, if that's what you wish, and but if it helps, you can just give them to me and then I'll pass them out. Typically. Thank you.
I apologize for going so far back in time. The first handout is regarding January the 12th of 2023, a letter sent out by the Charter Township of Harrison Township. I did not receive a copy of this letter, so that's why I would like to discuss it. It says that there will be an informal meeting on Monday, February the 6th at Russell Hall. I looked on the internet at the website and I could not find any evidence of a meeting of that day. The following meeting was on I believe the 13th of February, where the minutes were amended or accepted for the January meeting. Was there a meeting on February the 6th?
So we won't engage in a back and forth conversation. You can ask questions. Once the hearing is over,
Okay.
we'll answer those questions as best we can.
Now, it says a preliminary engineer's estimate will be available at the informal meeting. Is that estimate still available? Has there been any formal estimates done? Were there any studies done? The age of that road on Cortez is 50 years old, approximately. That road is in fairly good condition for being there for 50 years, as compared to the road that's on Town Hall right now, which was just resurfaced a few years back that asphalt is not going to last 50 years. And I'd like to know if there was a study done on the expectancy of that road and how long it's going to last. And if there's a cheaper method, rather than just ripping up the entire road and taking it out, what about resurfacing? It's not in that bad of condition. And also in this letter, it states El Dorado Knolls subdivision. I've highlighted this for you for the benefit of people that don't see it. El Dorado Knolls subdivision, lots 1, comma, 3 through 27. We'll get back to that a little bit later. And then that's merely a forum. And you're stating the petition, already back last January, you're talking about this petition that was going out, so it must have been in the planning stages. And you state that it is a legal document. I'm not discouraging that or arguing with it. It is a legal document. And that the signatures on the petition should be as they appear on the deed. I wanted just to get those on the record right now. And then the next meeting was supposed to be on February the 6th. We can now go to handout number 2. Handout number 2 is the copy of the actual legal agreement that was mentioned in the letter. This is the petition that went around and was signed by the people who were in favor of it. I highlighted here at least 51% of the total frontage on road improvements. That doesn't say anything about driveways or access or anything. It just says the total frontage. Again, it says El Dorado Knolls subdivision, lots 1, comma, 3 through 27. And then it states that for the purpose of furnishing the road improvements, everybody shall be required to pay the cost. Whether you saw this petition or you didn't see this petition, somehow magically you can be held responsible and you do have to pay the costs. And then you have the cost per lot, 41 lots at $9,687. And this special assessment will be financed on per lot basis over 41 lots. This is the legal document. Handout number 2A. This is my lovely daughter here.
Thank you. Oh, hang on. Are these all the same? I think there may be some. There's a 3, yeah. I'm not quite sure. Looks like there's some duplicates here. I don't know if there's, just so that I'm clear, it looks like there's multiple copies. But it doesn't look like there's 7 copies of the entire set.
Are you short one?
No, there's, I mean, just, so if I look at the signature, this one begins with a Holland, this one begins with a
Okay, this is
Bard.
just only one copy.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I don't have 7 copies for everybody.
Yeah, there's 9 pages to the signed copies. I'm just interested in this one page right here.
Okay.
Mr. Joshua Ward here? The guy who's went around with the petition didn't show up to see what happened. Mr. Ward was the first one to sign this document. He's the one who went around circulating this document, and he lists his address as 25583 Carnot Circle. And he swore in front of a notary public under the penalty of perjury that he was duly sworn. He deposed and says that I personally circulated the foregoing petition and person signing petition did so in my presence and so on and so on. He indicated that he is a resident of the subdivision. I have a copy of his deed here. This will be handout number 2B. On the deed, it states that Sienna Rogers, a single person who resides at 25583 Carnot Circle, is the only name on the deed. I would believe that Joshua Ward had no right to circulate a petition because he's not a resident, and that he had no right to sign this document. He perjured himself. I believe that if he perjured himself, I'm not an attorney, but I think that that would invalidate the entire petition. I don't think this petition is legal, and that would be up to the attorney here. Handout number 3. This is a copy of a letter that was mailed out on September 7th. Notice of the special hearing. This is by the Board of Trustees. Again, I highlighted El Dorado Knolls subdivision, lots 1, 3 through 27. And then the Township Board has tentatively declared its intention to make the following improvements. Actual construction and, or the cost, final assessed cost is on actual construction. This is just merely an estimate. And again, there's 41 lots listed here. And the total estimated annual payments is $1,110.21. I highlighted the entire lower paragraph on this. Take further notice that if you want to appeal this assessment, you have to be at the meeting and you have to then send in a petition to the tax tribunal. Was this, I'd like to know if this paragraph was published in the journal. What if people did not receive this letter? I did not receive I received this letter. All of the previous ones I did not receive. Handout number 4. This is a letter that was mailed out on October the 12th of this month. It's a notice of a special assessment by the Charter Township of Harrison Township. Again, it states El Dorado Knolls subdivision lots 3 through 27. Somehow lot number 1 of El Dorado's was dropped. And it only includes lots 3 through 27. Lot number 1 disappeared. And it also says, please take notice that a special assessment roll has been prepared. 12 days after the previous meeting, this special assessment roll was already in public viewing at the township offices. It seems that it's rather quite a hurry to get this pushed through. That road's been there for 50 years. There's no hurry to dig it up. You know, has there been a study as to how many of the residents want to have that road ripped up? Is there a cheaper way to do it? And then now it says there are 42 lots with direct access to Cortez. It had been stating 41 lots. Suddenly we gained a lot. But if you look at the drawing on the subdivision and you count each one of those lots, there's actually 43 lots. So we got 43 lots, 41 lots, 42 lots. We're not sure how many lots there are even in the subdivision. That does not make any sense. And then according to the 42 lots, the annual estimated payment is going to be $1,110. It dropped 12 cents because we picked up one extra lot. It must be the new math that they're teaching in the schools today. Also, if you notice on this drawing that was handed out, lot number 1 of El Dorado Knolls subdivision faces South River Road. Why was that even included in the first place? I know why it was dropped, because they have nothing to do with it. But why was it included in a legal document? And who had the power to change the wording of a legal document after the signatures had been signed and notarized? We'll go to handout number 5. We're getting close to the end. So. This handout is showing the 4 corners of Cortez. Lot 27, Lot 30, Lot 38, and then we've got a lot number 1, which is colored in brown. Lot 27, lot 30, those 2 houses face Town Hall. Lot 38 faces Land's Cruise. The house that's in the brown, that faces Land's Cruise also. But for some reason, that house is not included in this tax. Why is that house exempt from the tax and the other 3 houses are included? If you go by the wording of the legal document, it's 51% of the total frontage of the road improvements. Those houses do not have frontage on Cortez. They have side lots on Cortez. I was informed, well, that side lot is a front lot. I don't know, I didn't see that anywhere. And then I was told, well, if it's got a driveway access, then you're included in the tax. Well, that's not in the legal document. How can you change a legal document in the wording on the document without informing the people? Now, if you're going strictly by driveways, every house with a driveway, I happen to have a county permit to rip up the driveway. I have a semicircular driveway. I have a county permit here that entitles me to rip up that driveway and take it out. I also have an estimate by a company on doing the work. So I will not have a driveway going into Cortez if you somehow determine that it is by driveways. That ends. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ready? My name's Steve Eisman. My wife and I live in the subdivision. In general, we're in favor of it because I think the road is in pretty bad shape. But I do have some concerns because it is a lot of money. 3 concerns I wish you could address. One is the assessment attached to the property or to us as individuals? So for example, if we finance it out through 10 years, but we sell our house in 5 years, do we have to pay the remaining balance, or does that just become part of the assessed value of the, goes on to the next buyer? Second, absent this particular special assessment, could you just discuss the likelihood or any feasible other way of getting the road resurfaced? Because I'm not aware of one. And then third of all, could you give us an update and kind of review again? I know that at the special meeting, we talked about there's a special county grant for sewage or drainage, repair, but it's not a slam dunk. So we're just wondering what the status is of that and what you think the likelihood of that. Are you going to apply for it or whatever? And what do you think is going to happen with that? Thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comment? We ask that each individual
me.
limit themselves to 1 public comment session. Our policy is 3 minutes. You probably had about 15, and I'll do my best to answer your questions, but we would like to give
Would
everybody else.
anybody care to give me?
No, that's not how it works. Listen, our policy is 3 minutes. You've presented us with a lot of information. I'm going to do my best to answer. But the idea is you have a chance for public comment. You finish your public comment. It's our policy that everybody gets 1 chance. Otherwise, a meeting like this,
Silenced, right?
you're not being silent, sir. I never asked you to sit down. Once you're finished,
Well, I thought of another.
you go ahead, but just understand, I'll hear what you have to say, but understand that in order for us to do the business of the township, we're not gonna have a back and forth and everybody taking turns. If 3 people here decided we could be here till 2 AM if we had a policy where everybody could speak as much as they wanted.
This is not a dictatorship.
I understand, sir, and so what I'm saying to you is our policy is 3 minutes. We probably let you go 15. I'll listen to what you have to say, but we do want to get through that point so that we can do our best to address the questions that you and another resident present.
There's quite a few people who are not comfortable with getting up and speaking in public.
Right. The problem, though, just so that you understand,
I've
is I can't assume that somebody doesn't want to talk. This is for public comment. Anybody who wants to speak can speak, and I'll allow you to speak again because I'm not wishing to silence you. I'm just trying to explain that in order for us to be able to handle all the things on the agenda, we generally try to have some reasonable limit to what that is. But I'm not asking you to sit down. I'll jot down whatever other questions you might have. But I'll ask you at this point, once you're done, that'll be the end. And if anyone else wants to speak.
I have gone around, talked to several of my neighbors, several people living in the subdivision. The feeling back there is they can't fight City Hall. They're not even willing to come down to a meeting. I tried to get people to come to the meeting. How many people got a letter from me? I sent out letters to everybody. They're afraid to come up and talk. They feel it doesn't do them any good to fight City Hall. You're going to push this through whether they want it or not. There was no study done as to how many people want this road. That road's been there for 50 years. It's going to last another 20 years. How long is your asphalt road going to last? Not 10 years. Town Hall is already starting to crack up. The people are afraid to get up and speak. They don't want this road, and if they could take their name off of that petition, I know several people who would take their name off of that petition. The man who circulated the petition, he perjured himself. We can't trust any of those signatures that are on that petition. We have legal here. I assume that he is not here. I assume that he's not here to represent the board. He's not here to represent the people. He's here to rule on whether it's legal or not. Am I allowed to ask him a question?
I'll allow it.
That petition, is
But
it
I'll ask that we wait until
invalidated?
once we're done to answer. So,
Does he answer the question or no?
no, we don't engage in a back and forth. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. This is public hearing. It's not a public conversation. So I'm trying to be as liberal as I can. We don't normally allow this, but if you have a question, we'll
If
write it down
somebody-
and we'll do our best to answer it afterward.
If somebody perjures himself and fraudulently signs a petition and circulates a petition, is that petition still valid?
And so we'll.
Question number 2. Once you have a legal document, isn't that known as the four corners of a document? The wording of that document cannot be changed to suit your needs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Name and address.
It's up to you.
Tom Wright, I'm on Cortez. We did end up signing the petition, but everybody agrees with this gentleman right here. It was given to us in false pretenses. There was no literature about it. We were just told by the gentleman going around, Josh, having people sign the petitions, just stating that, yeah, this is just a petition to talk about the road, to find out how much it costs. Nothing was presented. That's it. And a lot of people at the time agreed, yeah, we can use a new road, new surfacing, but no other information was given. The only information that was given by the gentleman that was putting the petition out was, this is just a form to be able to talk to it with the township, and then go on from there to find out how much it costs and everything else. Everybody is sticker shocked. Nobody wants to pay that in their taxes and have to pay for it. If they decide to move, we don't plan on staying here. We're going to be moving. We don't want to have to pay for somebody else to buy our house. The price is just ridiculous, and who gave the estimate? What company? It's been on the drainage. No real answers on that. There wasn't a lot of options given. Like I said, no documentation, nothing. Just, here, if you sign this, we can go to the township and discuss it. That was it. Now all of a sudden we find out it's a legal document, and it's already been kind of pushed through. So that's why a lot of people are not happy.
Thank you.
I've attended all 3 meetings that we've had so far. I'm still a little perplexed on this grant that the board has said may or may not happen. I've heard several different stories. One is a grant that would help us with the road, the cost for the road, that some of that money would go there. The other is for drainage. I think based on that and the conversations I've had with several of you, we're all confused. If you get a grant, does that mean that money is part of the road system, or does it mean, is it part of the sewer system? And if it is, isn't the sewer system, the responsibility of the sewer system in itself belonging to Macomb County, not to Harrison Township? And if that's true, then why are we worried about a grant and have to pay half of that money again? Because I think it was Mr. Witt that said that if we get a grant, it could, for sewage, it could possibly be that that the sewage portion of it could be half again amount of road, which means that's another $10,000, or half is $5,000, of course, right? And so there's, for me, it's a little perplexing, and I don't quite understand it. And I'm talking to some of you, and some of you have also said, no, I think it's going towards the road. So we're not really clear on that. And I'd like a clarification, because that, you people really know, we don't. Okay?
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Matt Kozicki, 25436 Cortez. This Joshua Ward told me if I sold my house, it would get pushed into the next owner. That's bullshit. That's not true. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Any other public comment?
Go.
Joe Pitnado, I live on Cortez. I believe the petition should be voided because it was signed under false pretenses by what Joshua Ward told some of the people. Just my.
Thank you.
He lives with some girl. The guy that signed the petition lives with some girl.
Is there any other public comment?
Again, I think guy that did this whole petition thing has no skin in the game. Right? He don't pay a frickin' tax to you guys. Doesn't pay any of your wages. But he's promoting this crap. I think it needs to start over at the very least. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Any other public comment? Hearing none, we'd be looking for a motion to close public hearing number 2.
So moved.
Is there support?
Support.
Got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mrs. Rose to close public hearing number 2. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mr. Batkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Witt, yes. Mr. Verkast?
Yes. So I'm going to try to do my best. I tried to organize the documents in some order to be able to try to answer as chronological as possible some of the questions. I think I'm going to need Mr. Witt's help and Mr. Huth's help to be able to provide answers. But before I begin, I want to clarify something. I don't care if you repave your road. I'm going through this very process on my road. So I'm telling you, as a lifelong resident and as a supervisor in my 13th year, this is what I believe to be the best way to redo a road if the residents on that road want to do it. But we're not forcing this on you. We don't really want to tell you what to do. So that you understand, we've had neighborhoods that have gone through this process and they've successfully collected petitions. We've had neighborhoods, just so that you know, just in this grant cycle, we identified 3 roads that we would, because we're allowed to apply for up to 3 roads. It doesn't really matter where, but there's another road in our township that went through this process. Their cost is less than half of the estimated cost of your road. However, they decided not to even circulate petitions because they didn't think it was a good idea. So they didn't even begin that process. So this isn't a slam dunk. This isn't me or anyone at this board trying to force anything on you. This is a process that's open to local control. Now, we'll talk about some of the individual questions, but I just want to clarify, we don't gain or lose if any neighborhood chooses to repave their road. It's up to that local neighborhood. So just kind of a overarching view. Monday, February 6th was a meeting held. Yeah, it was an informal meeting. It was here, and Adam and I were both here, and I know some of you were there. I recognize some of your faces. I can't tell you who all was here, but to answer the gentleman's question, was a meeting held on Monday, February 6th? Yes. The engineer's estimate is just that. when we get that recurring call saying, my road stinks in front of my house, who's gonna fix it? It's Groundhog Day for us. We go through this entire process of explaining that, and I'll get to one of the questions. Aren't the storm sewers the county's responsibility? Yes, but so are the roads. So it needs to be understood that road funding in Michigan is broken. It's been broken for decades, and nothing about EVs or more fuel-efficient vehicles or any of a number of other issues with the road funding system have been addressed. We're going in the wrong direction. There's less and less money, and there's more and more cost each year to fix roads. So even if at a legislative state level they fixed it, the time that I am confident in saying that there is no one in this room that will be alive if and when the state ever figures out how to fix local roads. So there is nothing that's going to fix a local road, number one. Number two, the state says in Public Act 51 that a county road agency cannot repair, when I say repair, rebuild, reconstruct, repave, a local road without matching funds. So the county cannot legally ever come on your street and repave that road. It will never happen unless the state law changes. That's just the law. And that's true for my road as well, which is why I was willing to circulate petitions on my road to get this done. So the process begins with residents coming in saying, what is it going to take to get our road done? Regardless of whether you're for it or against it, we can all understand that there's somebody on your road that thinks that road should be repaved. We all know that. On every road, there's someone who says, we need to do this. There's someone who's completely opposed. So what we say is if you can get 51% or greater of the people to say you're willing to repave your road, we'll go through the process. The first step in that is to come up with a price, because of course, when someone comes to your door or you come to me and say, I'd like to, you know what, I understand now, we've got to put some matching dollars. What's the first question? What's it going to cost? So we employ the township engineer to use the most current data from other construction projects to come up with an engineer's estimate. We add a contingency to that. We aim high because we can't tell you we think it's going to cost 9, and then when we're done say, well, it cost 13. Well, I wouldn't have agreed to it if it was going to cost 13. So we get our best engineer's estimate, but it is just that, it's an estimate. And we try to make it a conservatively high estimate. Was there a formal estimate? No, there was no formal estimate done. The fact is, when all is said and done, the true cost of this will be the actual cost based on the county taking a number of roads from Harrison Township, Clinton Township, Chesterfield, Shelby, and Macomb, putting them all together, going out for bid on a large scale, which typically gives us an economy of scale on the project. So the actual cost, when all is said and done, is exactly what's going to be the going cost of a road in the spring. It'll be competitively bid, and whoever gets that competitive bid gets the project. So to spend a lot of time and money on a formal study when the ultimate final cost is going to be whatever the bid is, that's the process we follow. Was a study done on the life expectancy? Is there a cheaper option? The answer to both of those is that road is a county road. So while we manage the special assessment process because Michigan laws don't give the county the ability to do the SAD, the local municipality can do the SAD. But the county has that responsibility for the road. So if you said, we would like to repave our road, but we'd like to do it this way. If it isn't to a county standard, the county won't allow it. It's a county road, and the county has standards on what they'll allow for that road, both in terms of drainage as well as the asphalt, whether it's the mix, whether it's the thickness, whatever that process is. So all we can do is be the go-between to get matching funds between the county and the residents. So we have that option to do an SAD. I know there was a question on total frontage. The law says the circulation of petitions has to be based on total frontage. So that's not something we get to decide. The law does say, however, that dividing the cost of the project has to be fair and equitable. So, for example, the gentleman who spoke and said, well, resident A has a side yard but no driveway. Resident B does have a driveway. It's been our practice, and we've done this multiple times. If you've got a driveway onto the road, you're a part of that. You utilize that road with your vehicle. I might drive on your road. I don't have a driveway on your road. You might drive on my road. We look at it as saying that's what's fair. A big question was this, a covenant deed was produced listing an individual's name and then followed by someone signing a petition, someone circulating the petition, and I think that's a question, I think, about, clearly there's some significant concern about whether or not the process is legal, whether or not an individual can sign a document, how we verify that, so I'm gonna kind of look to Mr. Witt and Mr. Huth in no particular order to answer that, whoever is most comfortable with
Yeah,
that.
I mean, specific to the property represented as a signatory towards the, counting, the property owner did sign. So the person that appears on the deed did sign in favor of the process, so that signature is valid.
Right.
And
So the property for which the deed, we have a deed that someone produced, let's see, what was the property here?
39179.
Well,
Or
no,
I'm
it says
sorry.
K.
Oh, I think it's 25583. isn't it?
Yeah, correct, sorry.
25583, was it, Carno Circle, 25583 Carno Circle, according to this covenant deed. And again, I'm taking the document, I'm not saying you're lying, I believe you. It says that the person who owns that is, Sienna, I guess, Sienna Rogers, or Shauna Rogers, and she did sign the document. But there was a question produced as to whether or not if someone signed it who doesn't have legal standing, does that make the document no longer a legal document?
I think that it may have been, the question I think was if they were the circulator and didn't have standing as a resident, does that make the signatures gathered improper?
Well, at least two questions. One is this document null and void because someone who doesn't have standing signed it? Does that make the petition process
And I mean,
void?
not to step in front of Rob, but it's a common occurrence where we maybe would have a wife sign on a deed where only the husband appears, and we don't throw out the entire petition over what some may see as an innocent error.
Or if we don't have if the deed says that there's a husband and wife, and only one of them signs, that property isn't counted because both people have legal standing. So in this case, the property wasn't omitted because the proper person signed it, but then the other issue is,
So having an additional signature just has no effect at all.
it doesn't make it void, but then the circulation of the petition was the
Right,
question.
there's nothing in the statute that would require a circulator to have standing as a owner. And it kind of makes sense when you think about the statute even permits for nobody on the street to start a process and the process to get started in other ways.
Circulator has to be a resident.
I don't see that in the statute, sir, but
Yeah.
I'm not gonna, you know what, I
Yeah.
shouldn't have responded to you.
Right, and again, I'm gonna do my best, but we're not gonna engage in a back and forth, that's just not the forum. I'm gonna do the best I can to answer the questions.
You guys are gonna do what you wanna do, right?
No, wait, what we would like to do
I
is to
don't
answer the
agree
questions that you
with
have.
you talk, we talk. You guys are lying up there. You've got a lot of skin in the game. Last month, you said that, well, you can't pass your tax on to the new owners if you sell your property. But look at it this way, if your property is worth $200,000 and we repave your streets, now your house is worth $250,000, you got that extra money to pay off the tax, right? Well, if the value goes up, the assessed value goes up.
No, and listen,
And
and again,
every
I don't wanna
year
engage in a
for
back
the
and
next
forth, sir, but
10
we
years.
did close
No.
public comment. I'm gonna do my best to try to, I'm doing my best to answer your questions.
You guys are trying to run a dictatorship. This is not a democracy.
Thank you, sir. So,
I sent out letters.
please,
to every
sir,
single-
I'm
No, don't
asking you
interrupt me.
politely, this is not the forum for this discussion.
When is?
We've gone through this process. We're doing our best to answer the
Go through any
question.
process.
You've given us
I did
almost a
not
dozen
get to know
documents.
this.
There are other questions. I want to give you a chance to hear the answer to those.
I
You
don't
can,
wanna listen to you.
and that's
On
okay.
the letter, it says the person needs to be on the deed. Is that gentleman's name on the deed?
No.
Okay.
But the
You
person's
just
name who is on the
so-
deed signed it. That's the whole point. This is what I'm trying to explain.
But
There's
she
some
did
other
not
information that I think will be
She
helpful
did
for
not
you.
circulate it.
Hold on. There's other information we're gonna get to in this description. I'm doing my best to try to answer your question. I listened, I didn't interact, I didn't interrupt. I'm asking for the same opportunity. Let me, maybe this will help, sir. We're gonna go through and do our best to answer your questions. But at the end of the meeting, we open public comment again. So if you have further public comments, you can make them then. You don't have to stay, I'm not forcing you, but I don't think it makes a lot of sense to ask a bunch of questions and not stick around for the answer. You can do whatever it is you'd like, except one thing, and that's interrupt during the time that we're doing our best, because there are other people here who may want to know the answer to some of those questions. If we shout back and forth, we're simply not going to make any progress. The meeting deteriorates, and we end up having to clear the room. In 13 years, I've never had to do it, because we try to keep an orderly form to the meetings. So if you could, give me a chance to answer the questions. Doesn't mean you're going to like the answers. At least you might have a better idea. And if you want to speak further, we will open up the floor for public comment at the end of the meeting. So the question was whether or not the circulator, per the law, has to be someone who has legal standing on the property. Is that correct, Mr. Huth? And it's your position that that isn't, in and of itself, a reason for us to ignore.
That's correct.
Okay, fair enough. And there are other things, and I'm gonna do my best to give you some of the answers, which, from what I do know about the process, may bring you a little bit of hope. The question, one of the questions on document 3 was this process of being able to protest published.
The notice was published in the paper.
So the notice as it was mailed was also published in the paper, which is per state law. Okay. Let's see. So, pretty serious question. Throughout the process, it looks like, it appears at least from the documents that we were presented with, that there was a change in the description of the lots that were initially included versus later in some of the communications included.
Yeah, and part of the reason that we do this as a public process is to catch errors. You know, as much as I'd like to say that I'm perfect 100% of the time, there's no way that I can do that. When one of the residents contacted me and said like, hey, the notice says this and this, and I realized that, we went through the process of making sure that we updated and corrected. It was a listing in the letters. It wasn't, it was verbiage in the letter. It wasn't based on who we contacted. But again, that's why the state law allows for, in the event somebody doesn't get a letter, we do publish those notices in the paper to make sure there's another opportunity. And that's also the reason that we use the Journal as opposed to maybe like the Macomb Daily or the Detroit News or Free Press, where circulation is much less. It has a greater chance of catching somebody that we might have missed otherwise.
But it would be fair to say that the initial communications, I included Lot 1. Later, we realized Lot 1 didn't get a benefit from this, and Lot 1 was removed.
Correct.
Right? So, Mr. Huth, I'm gonna just go back to you. Through this process, it appears to be a matter of public record that a lot was identified to be included in the process. It was later identified that there wasn't a benefit. It was removed. Does that void the process?
It does not void the process. It's, really the process is in place to catch, items like that and make corrections along the way before it gets too far down the road, so.
And we could be finished with the paving and realize that Lot 1 shouldn't have been included, and it could be removed then, because it wouldn't be fair to include Lot 1.
Right, it's not receiving the benefit, right.
Right, okay. I wrote down, we gained a lot. So there was also something about 41 versus 42 lots.
And again, that was just updating the numbers to correct
Right.
that assessment.
So whether it seems like a good idea, a bad idea, the process is public and the process is, for lack of a better word, deliberate. And again, because, and I know there was a comment about a taxable value, assessed value. This doesn't affect your taxable value. It could affect your assessed value, which is typically a good thing, meaning that the true value of your home will likely go up. Studies have consistently shown that. But it doesn't affect the amount of taxes you pay in the sense that your taxable value goes up. Repaving a road, if you're on a paved road and you're on a paved road tomorrow and that road's just in better shape, we don't look at that. What a real estate agent might say your home would sell for is likely to go up, because if we do repave these roads and the comparable sales go up, that's one of the things that a lot of people in the real estate business use to determine the true value of a home. So it would likely have a positive impact. We've seen that historically, but doesn't have an impact on the actual tax level that you pay. Your taxable value is not adjusted based on this. An individual said they had three concerns. Is the assessment attached to the owner or to the lot? So, Mr. Witt, Mr. Huth, maybe you could address that.
The assessment is against the property, it's not against people. But normally, when there is a sale of the property, that assessment is handled at the time of closing. It is an item that
Has to be disclosed.
It has to be disclosed. It is an item that is usually negotiated between the buyer and the seller. We have, I believe, Mr. Tominelli, one instance where that has been passed on from one owner to the next. But again, that's a subject to negotiation. If somebody said, hey, you can buy the house, but you have to take on, $8,000 in a special assessment, there's probably going to be some concession on the front side to cover that funding.
So let's just say it's understood that this can be paid upfront, and that way you avoid paying any interest, or the cost can be spread out over 10 years. That's historically what we've done. So if Adam and I are neighbors, and we're your neighbors, and Adam pays his off right up front, and the real estate agent says his home is worth $275,000, and he gets an offer for $275,000, that's what it is. If I have a very similar home, but I haven't paid mine off, and I've got a $10,000 lien, and the real estate agent says my home is worth $275,000, that's what I'd hope to get. But I would expect that the buyer would say, hang on a minute, it looks like you owe 10 grand here. Maybe we better adjust the sales price because clearly there's a lien or a debt that has to be paid. So it goes with the property, but our experience has been that if there is a sale, it's typically settled at the time of sale. But that's a private decision between the buyer and the seller. Discuss other options. I began with that because I think that's really important. There are no other options. The county is legally prohibited by a law that's been in place since 1951, and although it's been modified throughout those years, the law says a county road agency cannot repair a local road without matching funds. There's only two sources for those matching funds. It's either a special assessment or it's the township. Back in 2014, the township did go for a millage for road repairs, a road millage. It failed. It failed by a small margin, but it did fail in 2014. That's 9 years ago. In the last 9 years, we've gone through this process at least, I'm shooting from the hip, at least a dozen times. So if a street with 50 people go through this process, those people are not likely to vote for a future road millage because they're saying, why would I vote for a road millage when I just spent $3,000 to $10,000 to repave my road? So every year we move forward and do another SAD, it's our belief, it's certainly my belief, that a road millage isn't going to pass if it didn't pass 9 years ago, and we've gone through this process again. Harrison Township is the only township in Macomb County that does not assess a general fund millage. So when you pay your tax bill, the only thing Harrison Township keeps for this board, is for police. We have a dedicated police millage. We have a dedicated fire millage. None of that money goes. The library board has the ability, and they assess 0.8 of a mil, but Harrison Township doesn't keep any money. So I don't have, or this board doesn't have, a bucket of money where we'll ever be able to produce that match because we don't even collect the tax. So we operate pretty lean. So what other options are there? There's really two options. There's participate in an SAD or allows your road to deteriorate to the point where the county would just continue to put cold patch or whatever repairs they're on it until it reverts to a gravel road. Which is why, after understanding that process, I decided to go through this very same process on my own road and circulate petitions. There's some discussion and questions about the grant from the county. Macomb County, for the past several years, has offered a local road reconstruction grant. Initially, the grant said that you had to completely tear out, go to the base of your road and rebuild your road. That cost is so high that we'd be saying to you, you can repave your road for 10, but if you get a grant, it would cost you 15 to 20,000. So what they found was in the first few years of that grant, no one applied for the grant. So then they modified the grant to say, well, you can do what on asphalt roads is a mill, shape, and overlay. We're gonna mill that material. We're gonna literally grind the top surface of your road. We're gonna reshape it, because what makes asphalt roads fail is that they don't drain. They go from having a crown to just the weight of the road sinks, water holds in the middle, you get ruts, water soaks in through the ruts and pops the road. So they said, we'll do a mill, shape, and overlay. They got flooded with applications. So now they said, well, we're giving out a couple $1 million and we have applications for $30 million worth of work, and it's just way too overwhelming. So the past, and I'm going probably 4 or 5 years ago, they said, we'll allow for a 50% grant, but whatever local road that has, the grant language specifically says you have to do substantial drainage improvements. Now, all roads are not created equal. We went down, I'm gonna say 2019, but I don't remember for sure. We redid Chartier. The folks on Chartier circulated a petition. The developer of that road, Chartier, put in an extraordinarily robust drainage system. And there's a county drain that runs diagonal to that road, and as a result, the drainage work on that road really wasn't that bad. The county requires the engineering firm to what they call TV the drains, would basically put a camera down those drains and identify what needs to be done. Is there someone whose driveway culvert is in the wrong shape? Is it plugged? We don't know. So drainage is a big variable. But the bottom line is, if a project is chosen for the grant, the county says, okay, we've awarded you the grant, do you accept? If you accept, you need to have you need to have the whole project engineered. That means putting cameras through, identifying where the problems are, and repairing it. Submit us those plans. The county's engineering department reviews those plans and says, yes, we think this is sufficient, and so now we'll send that out for bid. As a rule of thumb, not automatic, sometimes it's worse, sometimes it's not so bad, but generally speaking, drainage will double the cost of the project. So, we encourage the cost, the engineer's estimate, and the petition to be circulated without drainage, and if we apply for a grant, the cost should be the same, but the final product is gonna be way better because the road will last a lot longer, because it is the lack of drainage that causes a road not to last. The one gentleman, resident, had indicated Town Hall really didn't hold up very well. It's true, Town Hall doesn't have a very good base. None of the drainage on Town Hall was addressed. If you drive it after a rain, you're gonna see a lot of puddling on the side of the road, and so the road didn't last as long as a lot of times some of the roads would. It's not a local road, and so there's a whole other discussion there, but the grant from the county requires substantial drainage improvements in order for them to grant it. Again, just a note I wrote down, I'm following the same process. So while I'm not saying you should repave your road, if there was a bucket of money somewhere, I'd access it for myself and my neighbors, and so I'm just telling you that I'm going through the same process that you and some of your neighbors have gone through. Can't fight City Hall, was one of the comments. You don't have to fight me. If a majority of the people on your street don't want this, I don't want to do it. But right now, we have signatures from majority of the people saying they do want to do it. So let's take a hypothetical. So today, we can talk about the state of our economy. But we could find out at roughly November, December, that you do get a grant. And we'd announce, hey, good news. And most people would be excited to hear that they got a grant. But what if come March, we were in a massive recession? We still have a decision, this board has a decision to move forward. If it's clear to me that a majority of the people don't want to move forward, I don't want to move forward. I'm not imposing this on you. You're not fighting City Hall. Frequently what we see is there's two groups of neighbors in a neighborhood, those who want it and those who don't. If the majority want it, it's not right for me to not move forward. And if a majority don't want it, it's not right for us to move forward. So if you're sitting here saying a majority of residents don't want it, give me some proof. I'm not looking to force it down your throat. My personal opinion is I'd wait to see if you do get a grant, because I think that's a really good thing to cross to find out whether you want to move forward. But this isn't me imposing, or anyone here imposing this. This is us trying to do what a majority of the people on your street want. We love to see a 70% signature level. Sometimes we only see a 52% amount of people sign. The more the better, because the more assured we are that we're doing what you want. But there is no payback for me personally to have your road repaved. I have no skin in the game. It doesn't matter to me. I'm only trying to do what a majority of the people on your street want, and I'm speaking for myself, but as a whole, as a board, we're doing what you want. And it may not be specifically you, but I can't say, well, Bob doesn't want it. If a majority of people want it, we move forward. If they don't, we're not pushing it through. There was something about, there was no study done. We don't do a study. We don't control the road. This is the process. There aren't 6 different ways that we can repave your road. This is the process. The county, I don't want to say dictates it, but they have to have some sort of standard, so they say this is what we'll allow to be done on there. I don't know this. I think we talked about the perjury subject, but there was a question asked about whether or not there were 4 corners to a document, and I don't know if that's something that you have an answer for, Mr. Hoot.
Well, it's a general question. Yes, there's 4 corners to a document. Nothing's been presented tonight that throws us off that the process has not been appropriate.
Correct. So who made the estimate? It's an engineer's estimate. The final cost is no more or no less than what the actual cost is. So if we do move forward with this project, we have our engineering firm do the engineering work. We give that engineering work to the county. They either agree with it or they ask for modifications. Once they approve it, they include it with anywhere from, I'm sure, 5 to 10 other roads throughout the county, maybe more. They go out for bid. It's been our experience when we've done this in the past that we get a larger contractor, I guess maybe a more professional contractor, a more competitive contractor than, say, a smaller contractor if we're only doing 1 or 2 roads. So when they are clustered, we have had good results with the process. What does the grant do? I think I've answered that, but it covers 50%. So it's up to $500,000. Your project is small enough that if we get a grant, if we're successful in getting a grant, that project will include repaving the road, making substantial drainage improvements, and whatever that final cost is, it's split in half. The county grant pays for half of it. The rest of it is divided up amongst the 41 or 42 lot owners. Are the storm sewers the responsibility of the county? I think I answered that. The road and the drainage, storm drainage, is county's responsibility. So while it's their responsibility, they're saying we can't fix this without matching funds. And so this is the only way we're going to give you a 50% grant if you go out, circulate petitions, and collect that. So I hope that answered some questions. I don't know if there's some other things I missed that you guys thought of.
The only thing is I heard a couple residents say they felt like they were lied to. I did have somebody come to the office and said they had heard that from a number of the residents, and I had, if we had, documentation said the person said X to me and really it's Y, that's something we would look at, but to date, we haven't received anything to that other than, a verbal statement tonight. And so if, there was 10 people that said like, oh yeah, the guy straight up lied to me, that would impact the way we would look at the signatures. So again, we're not here because we want to do this. We're here working through a public process to get to what the majority of residents in that subdivision want.
So, yeah, so
And again, ultimately, we're not moving forward with this project regardless of what happens tonight until sometime next year.
right. So I guess if there were people, so it was stated that the petition is a legal document. Once we held that meeting in February, there were members of your neighborhood who came to the clerk's office and said, individuals who said, I want to circulate a petition. We do our best, the clerk's office does their best, to prepare that petition so that it is a legal document. But it says, and we've said in all our correspondence, this isn't maybe I want to do it. So it's written in those documents. I can't tell you if someone came to your door. I mean, no different than you to question what I said when I walked around with my neighbors. I'm not empowered to say, I think you're right, and Mr. Smith lied to you when he came to your door. But I can tell you that if there's 41 or 42 lots and 30 people put in writing that they think this is a horrible idea and they change their mind, it would be convincing to me, because I would start to say, gosh, maybe something wasn't done properly. But at this point, what do I have? We have 51% of the people signing a document saying they want to move forward. I recognize it's clear that there's some folks here that don't want to move forward and think it's a bad idea or feel that it's been fraudulent. If a majority of people in some method could prove to me that they're opposed to it, I would want to take another look at this. But as it stands right now, based on what we've held several of the meetings that it takes to get to the process of moving forward. We have applied for a grant. It comes at a small cost for us to do the engineer's estimate. I think it's $1,500 is what we pay for the grant application. So in good faith, we've tried to move forward because we truly believe the majority of the people in your neighborhood want it. But it's not happening tomorrow. If there's truly opposition and there's a way for people who are motivated to oppose this to prove to this board that a majority of people believe they were lied to and are against it, now understand, that could lead to someone saying, well, I'm going to go out and try to get more signatures. At this point, the legal standard for saying a simple majority want to do this project has been met. The clerk's office verifies signatures. I know one of my neighbors came to me and said, well, I'll sign it. And I said, well, actually, your husband needs to sign it also. And they said, okay, well, I'll get it done and drop it off at your house. I brought in that petition. Clerk's office said, I don't accept that signature. It doesn't look like the signature we have on file for that individual. So I went back to their home and I said, please sign this in front of me. I need to see it because they said your signature's no good. So I know from my own experience, they do go through a process and do the best they can to verify those signatures. So if the lady on that deed signed it, the fact that someone else signed it on that property doesn't mean that her signature doesn't count. But I understand the concerns that were brought forward. Bottom line, the best I can tell you, if most people don't want it, I don't want it, because I'm trying to satisfy the majority. But at this point, everything that's been presented to us, other than, and I don't want to offend anybody, but at this point, it's hearsay. I know a lot of people who don't want to talk, and they're opposed to this. I respect that, but I can't make a decision based on that. I can't oppose a whole list of signatures of people who said they want it and say, I bet you were lied to, and I heard from somebody that you really don't want it, and you signed it. I just can't make a decision based on that.
Right.
So my point to you, sir, was, and the point I wanted you to understand, if there's a way that you can, a good common sense way to prove to us that a majority of people don't, at the end of the meeting is public comment, I don't want it to move forward either, because this isn't about us deciding. We're not cramming it down your throat. You don't have to fight City Hall. City Hall is working on your behalf because we believe a majority of people on your street want it. If that's not true, I don't want to move forward, but right now, the only thing I have that really is a legal proof says a majority of people want it. So, any other comments?
And I appreciate the residents' zeal in opposition to it. I think if it were mine and I didn't want it, I would have a similar outlook on it, and I can appreciate that. And that's why we have these meetings, that's why we do them in public, that's why, I know we've spoke, we maybe disagree on the outcome, but I appreciate, the time that you took. Going forward, if somebody wants to get something to me to add to the record and where we can reevaluate it, I know I've spoken to a number of you. I don't hide, I'm in my office. You guys can find me and we'll work with you to make sure we have it and we present it to this board before any final action's taken.
So, and again, as I mentioned, these kinds of things, if we had an open forum, we could be here till 2 a.m. We took whatever public comment there was, and as I mentioned to the gentleman, I know you were frustrated. I understand it's not the best forum from your perspective, but we have a couple other items, none of which I really believe are going to take a whole lot of time. So my guess is in a short period of time, we'll be opening up the floor for public comment about any subject you wish. And we ask that you limit it to 5 minutes, but we can do our best to try to answer those questions second time around. So there is no required action other than opening and closing the public hearing.
Correct.
Okay, so next on our agenda is item E1 regarding the spillway pedestrian bridge. Board members, we have been working on constructing a pedestrian bridge at Jefferson over the spillway for as long as I have been on the board. We received a grant in 2021 to develop the preliminary engineering for the bridge. This work was necessary to apply for grants, which we did this year with significant help from the Macomb County Department of Roads and also the Macomb County Department of Public Works. We were successful in getting a $1.6 million TAP, or Transportation Alternative Program grant, it's a federal grant, as well as a $1.04 million Ralph C. Wilson Foundation grant for the engineering, fishing piers, and connecting paths to connect the bridge to existing paths. The total for the bridge project is projected to be $2.45 million. $3.45 million, thank you. With $300,000 coming from the Macomb County Department of Roads, $1.64 million coming from two grants, and approximately $500,000 coming from township funds, which could include general funds as well as DDA funds, because this is in our DDA district. That equates to about a 15% match. The design engineering for the project is estimated to be over $600,000. Wade Trim did the preliminary engineering, so they have sufficient knowledge to help us prepare bid documents and solicit bids. The cost for engineering will be funded roughly 50-50 between the Ralph C. Wilson Foundation and township's own funds, so there are no strings attached to how we select an engineering firm. I'll pause there a moment. Sometimes when things are federally funded, the federal government may have certain statutes we have to follow, one of which, for example, might be qualification-based bidding. In a qualification-based bidding setup, we maybe analyze 5 or 6 engineering firms and then select the best firm, and then based on that, they get to tell us how much they'd like to charge. I'm a little uncomfortable with that process. I kind of feel like I definitely want a well-engineered pedestrian bridge. The fact is, we're not asking them to do something that hasn't been done before, and I do believe a competitively bid project is the best option for us. So fortunately, the funding for the engineering, the design engineering for this bridge doesn't have strings attached. So we can have a bid spec written that maybe weights more the cost of the engineering. Attached is a proposal from Wade Trim to prepare the bidding documents and to handle the bidding process. I recommend we approve Wade Trim to prepare the bid documents and assist us in the bidding process for the Spillway Pedestrian Bridge design engineering at a cost not to exceed $6,000.
I'll make that motion. Support.
Got a motion by Mr. Tominello, support by Mr. Brado. Any discussion on the motion?
This has been a long time coming. I can't wait to get this done.
Yeah, yep, and I don't want to wait around and find out that, funds dry up. So I think the right thing to do is to move forward. Both of the grants that we received did have, I don't want to say strings, but sometimes we get a preliminary announcement saying, yes, you've received this grant, but I think in one case, the correspondence I received was, congratulations, you got the grant, but until we tell you otherwise, you're not allowed to say something publicly. So it prevented us from moving forward with the engineering, because clearly that would indicate that maybe we got a grant. So, any other discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. We did just remove item E2, so next on our agenda is item E3. Board members, the EPA and EGLE, state agency, regulations require municipalities in Michigan to acquire a municipal separate storm sewer system, or MS4 permit, and follow certain regulations. This is a part of the Clean Water Act ultimately. There are multiple requirements for education, maintenance, and reporting. Our Public Services Director has been working with our engineering firm and EGLE representatives to make sure we are in compliance. One of the requirements is that the board must adopt our IDEP, or Illicit Discharge Elimination Program, policy number 4. We can do that by passing an ordinance, which is a costly process, but the state accepts adopting a resolution. I did prepare a resolution, so in the board packet is the policy as well as a resolution which would allow us to adopt policy number 4. I recommend the adoption of a resolution to adopt IDEP policy number 4.
Make that motion.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. Witt with support by Mr. Olgiati. Discussion board. Hearing none and seeing no public comment, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mr. Witt, yes. Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mr. Batkins?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Verkest?
Yes. So we do have one additional agenda item, that's G1. Laws allow us to go into closed session to discuss negotiations with the 3 unions that we have, and we're in those discussions. In order to be respectful to the public, it's been our policy that we'll put that at the end of the meeting. So item F is public comments. So at this time, we open up the floor for public comments. They can be about any subject that you wish. We ask that you try to limit those to 5 minutes in length.
Good evening. My name is Ramon Romero, and I live on Huron Point. Most of my issues are basically answering all your remarks from the last meeting. I would like to let the people here know what we've been doing. The township would like to build a monument for a veteran, Lieutenant Colonel Donald Odell, I'm sorry. But anyway, they want to have this monument built next to our Veterans Memorial Garden, a $40,000 monument. And all along, for the last 30 years, this garden has been built for everybody to have just their name printed on it. Now to have one specific monument for one man adjacent to it makes him more important than every other veteran there. I think it's unfair. I'm all for honoring Grodell, but please, let's put it elsewhere. Name a school after it, or one of our parks, so that we don't take any honor away from the veteran, but we can still honor him. So anyway, at the last board meeting, you were under the impression that I thought that you had lied. And sorry that you had that impression. I did not mean that you lied. My neighbor came back after meeting with you and a couple of board members and said that you had told him that, or somebody did, he said you did, told him that the Beautification Commission had voted for this monument at that location. That was not true. That's when I gave out the paperwork to everybody, the board, Mr. Verkest, and my neighbor, also letting him know that the truth was that Beautification voted against that area. You also thought that I was lying about things that I've said. Everything that I've said had printed in the paper or written out was all true as to facts that I got from board member notes. If you'd like, I'd be glad to come to the office and we can go over those notes at your convenience so that you can see what I've said to everybody is the truth. We've always disputed the location, not the monument or anything else, the location. I had commented also that 90% of the people, you thought, I said 99% of Harrison Township agreed with me. That isn't what. I said 99% of the people I have talked to, they agree. Everybody seems to agree. We can have that monument for Lieutenant Colonel Odell, but not adjacent to our veterans. And as for not being able to have the school named changed, that is possible to be done. They changed the name of the Fred Pankow Center recently. So what you would probably have to do, and that I didn't check on, but I did check on changing the name. And what you'd have to do is go before the board, and I think the whole board could go to convince them that you want this. Or get someone like Mark Hackle, Candace Miller, Tony Forlini, people that are well noted in the community, to go and let the Board of Education know that we want this man honored, and we would love to have one of our schools named after him. That would be some work on your part, but even if they were then to deny it, you could always tell them that, the family then, that you tried your best to do it. but it could possibly be done. But we still have the parks, and if the school wouldn't work out, any of the parks would be, I think, an honorable place to have a monument for him. As for Mrs. Odell being told shame on her, I would not have said that to her. That is true. But got to admit, she deserved it. She knew what we were planning on doing, and she agreed with the lady who did not know. We talked to the lady, knows what we have planned, what we want. She agrees with us, and she wished us well on that. And as for Mrs. Odell, she's been heartbroken by all this. Her husband she's suffered a lot for this monument for her husband. So in her thinking, she probably thought, she was glad that somebody thought the same way that she did. But anyway, that is all the remarks that I have to re-answer you. The other thing I would like to know, could you please explain what you said at the end? We don't know what exactly your plan is for the monument as of now. Do you want to go forward with your plan of having it adjacent to the Veterans Garden, or were you thinking of another plan? I'm just wondering what you exactly wanted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, I live on Cortez. Earlier you had mentioned that the majority of, you were going off the majority of what the neighborhood wanted, but in all reality, not everyone on the neighborhood even voted yes or no for it. You only are going off of the majority of the 51% of the frontage. So, why is not everyone given a choice, yes or no? If they're affected, if their property is affected, everybody should have a vote. At that point, it would be majority rules, not majority over 50% on the frontage on the road, correct? And I just want to make sure to clarify that, Mr. Witt, you had said if we have opposing the signed petition, that we have to get something to you in writing to go against the petition that we signed. Is that correct? Is that what I heard from you?
Yeah, and again, I'm sorry, we're not going to engage in back and forth. I'm going to do my best.
I'll be honest, it's very confusing because you're looking for direct communication, so it's a simple
Yeah.
question.
I got you.
Back to your four corners of the legal document that was produced. You've got 41 lots, 42 lots, 43 lots. Was that a mistake? Mr. Witt, I believe that was a mistake. Well, if there's a mistake in that document, how many other mistakes are in that document? You had 42 lots, 41 lots. Lot number one was included. Lot number one is taken out. There's a lot of playing with the wording there. And I think that invalidates the document, let alone being circulated by somebody who perjured himself. Mr. Wood also informed me that once you sign the petition, you cannot take your name off of the petition. But if enough people had changed their mind, then the board has the power to kill the project. I sent a letter out to every single resident, not just the ones who were against the project, but I sent a letter to the ones who voted for it, too. I don't know how many of the people who voted for that project are here this evening and came because they want to change their mind. They felt that they were connived, lied, didn't know the exact details of this before they signed a document, and they would like to change their mind. I would believe that the board does not have a majority. You keep throwing this word out, majority of the people, majority of the people. I don't believe it is a majority of the people. And I will be sending out a letter to each one of the residents to see if they want to sign another petition to have this killed.
Thank you.
C. William Bardell, 27-year resident, clean cut, do-gooder boy next door, clean up, fix up, people helping people. Just want to remind everyone, real quick, check out Save Lake St. Clair, Facebook, follow, and keep up to date on everything that's going on with our wonderful Lake St. Clair. The other thing I want to say is, Adam, during the recess, I'd like to talk to you for about 20 seconds. I live on Point Rosa, and, we want to get our road done, and I know we had a meeting, and I just want to ask you a few technical questions, because I know we really want to get our road done. There's just a couple of technical questions I'd like to ask you during the recess, but our street's 50 years old, and I'm kind of on a first-name basis with the maintenance guy, and we seem to develop quite a courtship. And so I'm kind of waiting to kind of like to really get my street done, and I think it'd be really nice. And again, for the residents here, you won't get taxed. Your tax value won't go up because of the Headley Amendment. When they raised the sales tax from 4% to 6%, they cannot raise your taxes any more than 5% over the rate of inflation, whichever is less. So that's where they kind of save you. But then if you don't own a house, you're paying 2% more in taxes. So that's the advantage of that. That's the difference between your assessed value and your actual value, what they can assess it at. So that's how that works. It's because of the Headley Amendment. And I hope I explained it right. But anyway, everyone have a wonderful, safe evening. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
I have to say one thing. I agree with about 99.999% everything you said here today. It's true. But before I leave, I'd like to know a little bit about, get some information about your changing our meters on our water. What does that consist of? What do we expect when that individual or whomever it is comes into our house, and what are they going to do? Inspect the whole water system, what exactly is going to happen, and why should we let them in? And I know you can't answer that, but because this is not a question and answer thing.
So what I want to just reiterate, so it's okay that Mr. Witt had some mathematical errors in the legal document, and it's okay for him not to notify the Harrison Township residents that his math was incorrect, and that there's less numbers of houses in Cortez. You're going to state that you put that in the journal. It was not on the journal. You put this little minute box on the left-hand side of the journal. Statistics stay. Nobody reads the left-hand side of the journal. If you go and do some research, and the print is so, how can your senior citizens read that? Did you send out a letter letting them know that you did an error? And to change it, separating a house that would cost them $10,000, it's now going to save them 12 cents.
Is there any other public comment?
Gordon Drew, 757 Erie Street, Harrison. Regarding Mr. Digger Odell, Colonel. Put out. Not shine boys. Outshine. But I would say that if Mr. Odell were here, I just want to be one. Need a. So they should name a school after him or a park someplace.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll close the floor for public comment. So the process, the first question that I have, 51% of frontage, why would everyone not have a vote? So understand that this isn't a process we designed. This is the special assessment district process is a state legislative process. The state legislative process doesn't say everyone gets a vote. You might argue when everyone gets a vote, but the voting process isn't yes or no. A traditional voting process is yes or no. Do you want this? Yes or no. The special assessment district process isn't yes or no. The special assessment district is yes or silence. So understand that silence of someone who didn't sign this doesn't mean they're a no. They may just not have been asked. That isn't the process. We don't design that process. The process is 51% of the frontage. Why? I don't know. You'd have to ask state legislators. But I'm not empowered to say, I think it should be 60%. That's not the law. I don't make state law. State law says if 51% of the people by frontage sign a petition in favor of something, the process moves forward. To understand the process, the actual law says this. Actual law says the township can move forward with a special assessment process without a signature of the people. So the township board, per state law, is empowered to move forward with an SAD or a special assessment. However, the law says, if I believe it's 20% of the people say, I'm opposed to it, the process stops until 51% of the people sign a petition in favor of it. So the process says the township board can move forward with special assessment. We recognize that we don't really want to say, oh, I think a number of people in a neighborhood want something. So we just say, before we move forward, because Mr. Smith and Mr. Jones said everybody wants it, we say instead of moving forward and facing the opposition, then going through the process of collecting signatures, we say, get 51% or greater, and the process moves forward. That's what the state law says. So it isn't a vote process, whether I like that or not, whether you like that or not, that's not what the law says. Law says 51% by frontage. So we are a nation of laws. For me to say I choose not to follow that law, I've got to have some good reason for it. And as much as I hear opposition here, just like the subject on my street, just like the subject on that gentleman's street, just like the subject of putting up a monument to honor Lieutenant Colonel Odell. Some people think it's a good idea. There's folks who contacted me and said, I think you should move forward. I'm willing to donate for this because I think it's a good idea. Some people are opposed to it. Some things are really lopsided. 95% of the people want them. I love things like that because there's not a lot of decision there. We all agree that if 95% of us want something and 5 don't, well, it's clearly a majority. It's a significant majority. Some things are a little closer. The law says if you get to 51%, then we move forward. At this point, we have legally verified that at least 51%, the clerk knows that exact number, have signed a petition and we verified their signatures. I've heard hearsay from people saying, well, some people think that they were lied to. I get that, but I can't make a decision because someone comes up and says, well, I think someone thinks that it was unfair. I've got to have something better than that to deviate from what the state law says. If the state law says we should do X, and we get to just say, we're gonna ignore that and do something else, we all got a big problem. So right now, we've followed the state law the best we can. What do we need to stop? I'm not quite sure. I've never had this opposition to where someone said, well, we dispute that. I haven't had claims of someone saying, well, we think a significant number of people were lied to. But I've got to have something more than hearsay at a meeting to say that that's what's happening. As I said, the good news is this isn't happening tomorrow. We won't even find out if we get a grant for at least another month. And the construction season doesn't happen until probably June of next year. So if there is a true insurgence of people who feel that something fraudulent occurred, there's time. But at this point, all I have is I'm assuming everybody who's in opposition was in opposition before and they didn't sign the petition. But I don't know that because I don't know each individual, an affidavit from Mr. Smith saying this is what I was told. It's got to be something more than people coming to a podium. There's a legal process we're following. It's dictated by the state legislature. We're doing the best we can to follow the law. But as I said to the gentleman when I encouraged him not to leave, if there's something better, put yourself in my shoes. If I could say, hey, if there was something that we could understand and know that said a majority of people were opposed to it, and they said, you know what, I signed that petition, and I swear this person lied to me. Well, that would be meaningful, but it's got to be something more than someone coming to a podium and just saying that. Good news, we got time to talk about it, but the bad news, it's got to be more than hearsay. I don't know how else I can say that. Is the quantity of lots a mistake? I think we've said that. The process is constructed in a way that it's done publicly. I don't make the rules. The rules say you mail out letters and you publish something in a paper. Someone said, why publish it in the journal? That's because that's what the law tells us to do. We have to be in a paper of general circulation. I believe during COVID, we kind of ran into a sticky thing because the journal stopped printing. And if they don't print on a regular recurring basis, we can't utilize them. But it's our belief that putting something in the journal is better than putting it in the Macomb Daily. We all get the journal, but not all of us subscribe to the Macomb Daily. So it's the best paper we have. You might argue that using newspapers is an obsolete method. I don't make the law. The law says we have to publish it in the paper. So that's what we're doing. But throughout this process, everything we've done is as public as possible, from February's informal meeting to the things we've done since then. We're trying to follow the process the best we can. It's not our first time doing it. And yeah, was a mistake made? That's why we have that process. We can come forward and someone say, wait a minute, my lot isn't affected by this, or I should be treated differently because of where my property is located. Are there other mistakes? Not that I know of. If there were, we would do our best to correct them. But do mistakes get made? Sure. I challenge anybody in this room to say, I go to work every day and never make a mistake. You do your best. We go through a public process, try to make sure everybody's notified. If there's an error, we have to correct it. So we've done that to the best that we can. The question was asked, did someone perjure themselves? I don't know that I'm in a position to say that signing a petition saying I'm in favor is perjuring themselves. Maybe not understanding whether or not they had the right to be able to sign the petition is a question, but I don't think a lie occurs. I don't know that. I don't know if that's a standard or something you can define.
Perjury is a legal term of a material misrepresentation of fact. It's unlikely anything like that would rise to a criminal perjury.
Right, but I can understand the person signed it, whether they signed it to be fraudulent or not, I don't know. Are they in favor of it? It sounds like it. If you're telling me they're one of the people who circulated, if they co-occupy a home with someone who also signed it, that doesn't sound like something really criminal and devious, but I get it. Maybe their signature didn't count, but since the person who does own that home did sign it, you're going to count that property. I mean, you're stuck with these decisions. One gentleman asked about the water meter change. What's happening? How does it work? So for the last roughly dozen years, we've all had, well, I should say for a long period of time, we've had various methods of reading your water meter so that you get an accurate count. If we go back far enough, it was a very labor-intensive process. There was a time we could plug something into the home. I remember when I was a young homeowner, we had a drive-by system, and about a dozen years ago, we went to a system where we send out a ping, if you will, a signal The meter wakes up, it reads the meter, and sends us a signal back. We've reached the end of the lifespan of that meter reading system. We've also found that since that meter reading system was created, there are a number of features in successor meter reading systems that have some real value. The new systems have a tamper-proof mechanism, so they can help to prevent fraud, because we all should pay our fair share, but somebody shouldn't be paying nothing and stealing water. So this system has that feature. The new system comes with a feature where you can actually download an app to your phone, and you can get real-time readings on your phone. If you're on vacation, you can set it to warn you if there's any consumption. If you know your home is empty and you're up north or you're in Florida, it'll tell you if there was 1 unit of water, it would warn you. So it comes with a number of features. We don't have, well, I shouldn't say that. I would say doing nothing is not an option. The units we have in your homes, in various homes, are gradually failing, and as they do, we either have to replace them with an outdated system or upgrade to a new system. We made the decision to upgrade to a newer and what we believe is a better system. What does it look like? In order to get it done as fast as possible, we're contracting with a third-party company that does this. So they have a team of installers that go by home based on appointments, go into your home. We have our meter system is comprised of a physical water meter that uses the flow of water to create an actual mechanical movement that creates, looks like an odometer, if you will, if you look at your water meter. Then a device, a secondary device sits on top and converts that mechanical movement to an electronic or digital signal that it can broadcast back and forth. They set up a time, they come in, they put them in. Why should we let them in? Well, short term, the reality is we have to be able to measure what water we deliver to everybody's home. It's not unique to Harrison Township. This system or the piers are in every home in southeastern Michigan, short of having your own well and not having a domestic water system. One form of this type of meter reading system or another is in every home, and it's a necessary process to do. We hope to be able to do this as orderly as possible, but by law, you can't prevent the installation and still get water. If you refuse, at some point, we say, well, we have to shut you off because there is no method for us to be able to know what your water consumption is. So we're going to go through the process the best we can. I know someone said to me, well, who's paying for it? And I just answered that with kind of the same answer. Who pays for our roads? Who pays for our schools? Who pays for practically everything? Who pays the judge if we go to see the judge? Who pays for the police officer? We all pay. There is no magic source of money. We have savings, and so a portion of the cost of the meters are going to be paid for with a savings in our water and sewer account, and we'll probably look at a process of maybe bonding for a portion of the cost and paying that, basically borrowing and paying that over time to pay for a balance of the cost. But we're doing the best we can in terms of having identification, establishing appointments and doing those things. And again, we're dealing with a contractor that has done this numerous times for other municipalities with good results. Someone asked, I think I addressed, it's okay to make an error? It happens, and I'm not going to tell you none of us make errors, and I think that's just the way it is. I recognize the one gentleman said that, Digger would probably say he's just one of the guys. It's probably the reason why frequently when we honor someone significant in our history, we do it posthumously, because at the time, people probably are more humble and say, hey, I don't want to be recognized. To answer that question and to answer the first resident, what I'd said at the last meeting is what I say now. We voted as a board without opposition to move forward with that monument. Since then, I've met with you several times and proposed several compromises, none of which you've seemed to like. And so I said to you 2 weeks ago or 13 days ago, the same thing I'll say now. We're not moving forward with anything at the Veterans Memorial Site, even though the board voted. I'm saying to you publicly, just as I did 2 weeks ago, and we're working on something else that might be more palatable. as much as I recognize you don't like the idea, the reality is I've heard from lots of folks. Just like I said, you've told me, hey, I heard from people that are against this. I'm telling you, I've heard from lots of folks, including leaders, who think it's a great idea, members of business who had a relationship with Digger, who said, I'll help to fund it. I've asked you to kind of stop with the anti-project because I said to you publicly then, and I'm saying again, we're not moving forward, and if we do move forward with anything, it will be discussed publicly. So at this point, there is the same concept we had back in the beginning of this year to move forward. We haven't taken any action since then. We've talked about it just about every 2 weeks. And I told you 2 weeks ago, as I'm telling you now, nothing is happening, and we are looking at all the options to try to come up with something that's agreeable to everybody. Because while I recognize that there are some folks that like what we proposed, it's clear to me that there's folks that don't like what we've proposed. And I'd rather find some way of honoring a significant member of our community in a way that is agreeable to most everybody. So for right now, that project is on hold, and we're looking at our options. So, any other board comments?
I just want to, echo, I apologize for any confusion that the mistakes that that my office made, gave anybody. But again, that's why we go through this process, through a public process, to make sure that the correct information is done before we're past the point of no return. And so when people reach out to me and say, hey, I think I found an error, we do spend the time to go through and look at those, because again, I'm humble enough to know that on occasions mistakes are made. And I've talked to residents about, providing information. If there were people that were deceived, please have them reach out to me. I know it's never a comfortable thing. I get the pressure about saying I don't want to be the loud person, but we're happy to take that information and we will act on it. We're not doing anything that, because we want to do it, we're working in good faith to try and represent the people that we work for. So we're here for that. We're happy to do that. And we're happy to work with you through this project to find a solution.
Any other board comments? Hearing none, we've got a closed session to discuss IAF, AFSMI, and GELC negotiations. Is there a motion to enter into closed session?
So moved.
Support. Who's support?
Atkins.
Got a motion by Mr. Tominello with support by Mr. Badkins to enter into closed session. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Batkins?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Witt? Yes. Mr. Verkest?
Yes. Take a brief recess.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
All right. All right, board members, I'd be looking for a motion to enter into open session.
So moved.
Is there support?
Support.
Got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Olgiati. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mr. Backens?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Witt? Yes. Mr. Verkowski?
Yes. I would be looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, we got a motion by Mrs. Rose with support by Mr. Olgiati. Discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries, meeting adjourned. Thank you, board members.